ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਆਬਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਰੰਪ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਸ ਤੇ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ, who pays for it, what's the need for it?
They renamed the document as the WTO, that was called the World Trade Organization, which was simplified to the third world countries, mostly from Africa, South America, and Asia. And the first world still had the benefit of deciding how tariffs and trade will function.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸੋ, ਅਸੀਂ ਟੈਕਸ ਤੇ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇਹ ਟੈਰਿਫ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ?
Oh, it's as simple as tax. As we know, tax is a imposition of what the government will take away that you make in a domestic setup.
ਜੀ
When you turn the same thing into an international market, it becomes a tariff.
The Trump administration tariffs ਲਗਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ with trading partners like Canada, क्या ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ products ਨੂੰ discourage ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹੈ?
But see, tariff, one is the product based. What is our need?
ਜੀ
Second is also, do we need it or not, and how do you discourage it to protect your own economy?
what is the end game? Are we trying to say कि ਉਹ manufacturing ਇੱਥੇ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ Trump administration? Where is it leading with all the increase in tariffs?
It took them 20 years to realize, and again, US was in the forefront at the time with WTO and GATT, as you spoke about, that we could manufacture the parts in other countries, which had three things very importantly.
The way forward is ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੋਸਟ ਹਰਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ। ਟਰੰਪ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 50 ਦਿਨ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਔਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਸਪੈਕਟਰਮ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਈਡ ਹੋਈਏ, ਇਹ ਸਵਾਲ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹੋ ਕੀ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਟਰਾਂਸਫਾਰਮੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਬੜੀ ਰੈਡੀਕਲ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵਿਚ ਇਟ ਸੀਮਸ ਕਿ ਵਰਲਡ ਆਰਡਰ ਨੂੰ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਆਰਡਰ ਪਿਛਲੇ 80 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਐਸਟੈਬਲਿਸ਼ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਝੰਜੋੜਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀ ਡੋਮੈਸਟਿਕ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਝੰਜੋੜਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਹੋਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਐਜ਼ ਆਈ ਸੈਡ ਇਨ ਦ ਬਿਗਨਿੰਗ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਹੋ ਕੀ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਸਮਝਣ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨਵਾਈਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਜੀਓ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਐਕਸਪਰਟ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਦੇ ਐਕਸਪਰਟ ਹੈਗੇ, ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਨ, ਇੱਕ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਜੀਓ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਮਨਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ। ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ।
Thank you. Very welcome.
ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, as I said in the beginning, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, because it seems very radical, whatever is going on, whether it's domestic policy, whether it's the federal government, whether it's international policy, both in terms of trade and otherwise also.
And tariffs.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਆਬਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਰੰਪ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਸ ਤੇ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ, who pays for it, what's the need for it?
Thank you for having me here. So the basic question, as you mentioned, on is trade and tariffs. And very truly, the new administration has brought up these two words very aggressively. They have been there since the 1990s, early 1990s, with senior Bush administration. And they were forming a new organization in the world called as the GATT, General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, which was being set up so that the developed world would have some norms and schedules on which the world trade can function. It worked very well for a brief period, but it was slow. In the sense, a lot of countries didn't understand how it has to be implemented.
Okay.
Because it was a lot of law framework and socio-cultural issues were involved. To simplify it, they renamed the document as the WTO, that was called the World Trade Organization, which was simplified to the third world countries, mostly from Africa, South America, and Asia. And the first world still had the benefit of deciding how tariffs and trade will function.
Mandeepji, if I may ask, so when
Please.
this GATT was created or followed by WTO, was the purpose a reduction of tariffs or was the purpose increase in tariffs?
Okay. That was just the framework on how it will function. Because before that, there were no laws, more or less, of the ocean, how ships would trade, and the size of the ships, the number of containers, who would get what. Because as we all know, the resources are limited in the world.
Ji.
How the resources would also be distributed in the world was under the WTO Pact. And if you remember a few years back, we worked on and we spoke on the issue of bananas.
Yeah.
Under WTO, it seems very comical, but the thickest and the biggest document under WTO on trade is on trading of bananas.
Acha ji.
How simple could that be?
Ji.
We pick up a banana off the street in India or any other part of the world in the tropics. We pay for it, we eat it, and we move on.
Ji.
Do we realize that the biggest document that we ever read under law, under trade, is on it?
Ji.
And it all carries forward towards America and towards Europe.
Ji. It has always been very interesting. Europe the ਖਾਣ ਪੀਣ ਦੀ ਯੂਰਪ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਸਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਜੋ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਮੋਸਟਲੀ ਸੀਰੀਅਲਸ ਹੋਏ ਚੌਕਲੇਟਸ ਹੋਏ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬਾਰਸ ਸਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੇਲਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਕੇਲਾ ਇਜ਼ ਨਾਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਿਊਸਡ ਐਨੀਵੇਅਰ ਔਨ ਯੂਰਪ ਔਰ ਔਨ ਦ US islands anywhere. Is that true?
Very true. Most of the food that we consume, especially Europe, let's pick up Europe.
Ji.
And when we talk about Europe, as you know, any kid who knows about, any child who knows about Europe, the first thing comes into their mind is chocolate.
Ji.
Correct?
Ji.
So Europe doesn't have sugar, which goes in chocolate. Europe doesn't have cocoa, which grows in the chocolate. The only thing they have is milk. Of the three things that majorly goes into a chocolate, of course, then almonds and nuts and everything goes. That also comes from outside.
Ji.
So the basic provider is Africa. For all the raw materials that go into the chocolate. But what Europe has is a value add, the industry, how to make a chocolate, which under WTO, again, they are not very keen on sharing that with African countries because then they have competition. They will definitely make it cheaply, but you have never heard a company out of Africa that makes chocolate, having all the raw materials to make it.
Ji.
So these are the terms and conditions that are documented and put into the WTO, and technology of transfer is never easy. If you ever look at the first world and the second world and the third world,
Ji.
we are very willing in the first world to gather all the resources, but if you have to give them technology to make chocolate or any other food or how to harvest, it's the biggest issue.
ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਵਿਲ ਗੋ ਟੂ ਦ ਫਰਸਟ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਅਗੇਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਟੈਕਸ ਤੇ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਟੈਰਿਫ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ
Oh, it's as simple as tax. As we know, tax is a imposition of what the government will take away that you make in a domestic setup.
ਜੀ
When you turn the same thing into an international market, it becomes a tariff.
ਓਕੇ
So for example, we buy bananas locally within the US, and we pay sales tax and then federal tax, and then we buy the banana. But how is the banana going to enter the US market? Because we're going to import it from one of the Central American countries, the banana republics as we call them. So when we import them, there is a tariff imposed on it.
ਓਕੇ
And how it works is, if we don't need something in our country, let's say we have out of 50 countries, 30 countries are producing bananas, and we are growing. And we have enough to sustain our population eating bananas. And now we have the banana republics trying to send bananas in our country. So we would impose a higher tariff because our business would say we don't need them, and it increases competition, so let's keep it outside. In the real life, we don't have any state that produces banana in a bigger scale to fulfill the need of our population, except Florida a little bit. So now we would say, okay, we are in need of it. Let's not put any tariff on the import because we need it. If we put the tariff, they might go sell it somewhere else. So it's more or less the need of the country and how desperate the country is to get that product within their country.
ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸਮਝੀਏ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਰੰਪ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਲਗਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਵਿਦ ਟ੍ਰੇਡਿੰਗ ਪਾਰਟਨਰਸ ਲਾਈਕ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ, ਕਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਕਰੇਜ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹੈ?
Okay, it's a good question, and it's going on in the real life right now. So we understand. But see, tariff, one is the product based. What is our need?
Ji.
Second is also, do we need it or not, and how do you discourage it to protect your own economy? So under these circumstances, as we see, we are not a big producer of steel anymore.
Ji.
We are not a good producer and a large producer of aluminum anymore. We are not producing enough electricity that we are buying from them. So these impositions on Canada more or less are like to let's put you on a negotiating table and see where we can go with it, because if you are equal in selling and buying, it makes sense that we are in good shape. If we are selling less, buying more, then tariffs come into play.
ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਜਾਰੀ ਰੱਖਾਂਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਦ ਵੇ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ। ਦ ਵੇ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀਓਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਐਕਸਪਰਟ ਮਨਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ। ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਟਰੰਪ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ obsession ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ I don't know if it's going to lead to a trade war or if we are already in a trade war, ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹਨ, ਇਹ ਕਿਉਂ ਲਗਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਔਰ ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਸਟੀਲ ਦੀ, ਐਲੂਮੀਨੀਅਮ ਦੀ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਹੁਣ ਕਾਰ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਕਾਰਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਰॉ ਮਟੀਰੀਅਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ, what is the end game? Are we trying to say ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂਫੈਕਚਰਿੰਗ ਇੱਥੇ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਟਰੰਪ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ? Where is it leading with all the increase in tariffs?
Again, a very valid and a real life example. The car industry is more or less a very mature industry in the world.
Okay.
Since the 1970s, I think, when we opened our doors to the Japanese cars coming into the US.
Okay.
And when they came in, they overshadowed all our car companies because on the quality, maintenance, and so on and so forth. It took them 20 years to realize, and again, US was in the forefront at the time with WTO and GATT, as you spoke about, that we could manufacture the parts in other countries, which had three things very importantly. One was cheap labor. As we all know, labor around the world is cheaper than what we have. We should not say cheap, but exactly what we can say in today's world. They are lower wages than America's. Lax environmental laws.
Okay.
Because as we know, you must have heard, we had started to impose environmental laws. You just could not throw solid waste out into the rivers or the lakes. You could not let go of acid into the lakes and the waters at the time, because we had tried to control and provide clean environment in the 70s. Because we had come to a point where the Great Lakes, which was a big manufacturing hub, lakes were catching fire. We would leave petroleum and then a ship would go, it will go on fire. Lake Erie was having fires once every month. Lake Ontario was on fire. Our river Hudson was the most polluted river in the world at one time in the 70s and the 80s, because anything manufactured in the Connecticut area was let go into the Hudson. So this was our reputation in the world, and then we started to improve on it. And then we said, okay, let's take manufacturing out. Then we tried Jamaica, we tried another country, and then in the early 80s, we went into Mexico. next door.
जी.
And on the border with Texas, we started a new area where all the manufacturing units were set up, the textiles, the jeans, the car manufacturing, plastic, and they were called as the maquiladoras.
Okay.
And maquiladoras was very well accepted by the Mexicans population and very well accepted by the American corporations, because what we were paying a wage earner here $5 an hour, they were working for 50 cents an hour. With no health insurance, no insurance liability. So it worked both ways. They were getting 50 cents an hour. We were getting a product at a very cheap price.
But did they have the infrastructure to support the industry?
We set it up.
Okay.
So they only had to bring in the people.
जी.
Because of poor environmental laws, Maquiladora region became an acid swamp on the border. You could see it across
Okay.
with the videos that we saw. And because they could just put the drain out next and outside the factory.
जी.
And that made the whole area dirty for 20 years. Till then, the Mexican government started saying, this is not working out. Because in the real sense, in the social justice department, they came up and said the population working there are having miscarriages. They have lost nails on their hands because they don't provide gloves, and they're working in acid. So a lot of social cultural issues and social justice issues came up.
जी.
And then finally, they had to pick up their manufacturing, and I think so they went into Cambodia, then Vietnam, and then South Korea. But now the parts started to become more expensive because now they were more regulated with environmental laws and labor laws.
So Mandeep ji, are we saying that we sent out manufacturing because of these reasons, and this is something that happened in 70s, 80s and 90s. Now we are challenged by those companies elsewhere, those economies, and we want to bring the manufacturing back, and that's why we have put tariffs?
We are not bringing anything back in the sense, if you bring them back, today's minimum wage is $15 an hour, right?
जी.
Average?
जी.
And by the time you bring them back, number one, why bring them back? Because it's like your education. Once you finish your 5th grade, your 10th grade, your 12th grade, you're in college. And after college, you say, you know what, I need to go back and do 5th grade again.
मैं तो नहीं करूँगा.
No, that's what more or less the world is confused about.
जी.
Like we set up GATT, we set up WTO. It's been 30 years, and it's not that we can say the Democrats did it. It was Senior Bush who did it. That were Republicans again. And under his watch, everything was sent out.
I think free trade is a very conservative idea. It used to be.
Free trade is only used in areas where there is manufacturing.
जी.
And the local domestic country in which it's being produced is not taxing that product.
Okay.
That's called free trade. Because when you cross borders, money and product generally gets a small tax on it, depending upon who needs it and who does not need it.
जी.
For example, we talked about bananas. Now, if you try to sell bananas to Nicaragua and Honduras, right? They might have a tariff of 400% on bananas import because they have it. How much more can they? They have to protect their economy. Or if you sell coffee to those countries, they might have a tariff of 400% again, or 100%. Why need it? They don't need it. It's competition for their own economy.
जी.
So that's how they try to protect their
Local industries.
local industry. Interestingly, nobody talks about it. US as a country has the least tariff of most of the countries of the world.
जी.
We have given free leeway to anyone who wants to come and sell in it in our country, and we don't impose many tariffs on it. Number one, we have the ability to pay a higher price than the other countries can do. And we also see a need and demand for that product. Our population needs it. We have BMW, we have Mercedes, we have Maserati, we have Ferraris, we have Porsches, we have Volkswagen, and we have all these cars coming in. And the good part is they are competing with our local car industry, which was always well known in the world, right? The big three. But somewhere something happened where our car companies are not able to compete with the foreign car companies or import of foreign car companies coming in on quality. That's a known fact.
Gee.
And every 5 to 7 years, we always see our car industry getting a bailout. Not any other car industry is getting a bailout
Gee.
except ours.
So
And let me finish so it'll be easier. Now, whatever said and done, they're looking at imposing taxes under Obama administration. I think so they had put certain penalties on Toyota and Honda for some reason.
Gee.
But our car industry under him also needed a bailout. What we are looking at today is protecting our country, but from what is the basic question? Because we are just imposing our tariffs very quickly because it's a thought process. You negotiate, you tell the other party so they get prepared because it's not enemies, it's not a war unless until you turn it into a war. Because it's a diplomatic issue. If you impose them strictly very quickly, you're going to hurt the country that manufactures it because they'll get laid off, right? Because it's going to be expensive. We will not buy it. So it's a very calculated diplomatic issue. It's not an imposition that you do overnight, which I think so went a little too quick with that administration. And that's why they reverse it one day and then implement it again the other day. Probably they're novices in this sector and talking is easy. And hopefully something productive will come out of it. We have to protect our country. Plus, we have to make sure our partners who have been supplying that parts to us sustain well too.
ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਜਾਰੀ ਰੱਖਾਂਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਦ ਵੇ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ। ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਟੈਰਿਫ ਲਗਾ ਕਿਉਂ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸੋ ਵੀ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡ ਦੈਟ, ਔਰ ਕਿਸ ਤੇ ਲਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵਾਟਸ ਐਂਡ ਪਰਪਸ। there are certain industries, there are certain times jad apni industry nu bachana hunda hai, nations do that, and sometimes I don't know if they want to weaken some other industry in some other country, but the question is it has to be very surgical, it has to be very selective, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਂਡ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟਸ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜੇ ਧਿਆਨ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਫਾਰਮਿੰਗ ਸੈਕਟਰ ਲੈ ਲਓ, ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਕੈਟਲ ਰੈਂਚਰਸ ਦੇ, ਉਹ ਬੀਫ ਦੇ ਕੰਟਰੈਕਟਸ ਕੈਂਸਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਚਾਈਨਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਬ੍ਰਾਜ਼ੀਲ, ਰਾਈਟ? Where do you think, why is the need for that, and where do you think this is leading?
In simple terms, let's start again. As we know, America is one of the biggest providers of currency to the world, one of the biggest providers of food, manufacturing, and we have distributed it well around the world. Our products are well received on quality and price. And we have fairly done well to be at the top in the world. Now somehow, suddenly, the thought is that we have left our country open for other companies to come in, and we have no control over it. In the sense, our barriers of entry are so low, all countries and companies are coming in and selling. And when we go out to sell something to that country, the tariffs and barriers to entry are very high.
Okay.
Now, that's one of the biggest sticking point right now with this current administration. It is a good sticking point, but we don't need it because the world is working very well the way we are.
Okay.
We are the world's best consumers. We pay, we buy, and we keep it.
So is there, I'm sorry, is there anything specific you would say that our particular industry has been unfairly hurt because of these practices, restrictions to enter other markets, something which could not be, given any kind of relief in organizations like WTO and all?
See, over the span of 50 years, since 1991, 92, and we are in 2025 almost, there are many years that we should have paid attention to that, because over a period of time, the great manufacturing belt of the world, the Great Lakes region, lost most of the jobs. Ohio, Illinois, northern New York, Michigan, because of one reason: expensive labor.
Mandeep ji,
Number two, sorry, continue.
I'm sorry, how, we have the privilege of having you here today, and we'll take advantage of that. How true is that this whole idea of sending out manufacturing was idea of some conservative, thought leaders to challenge the labor movement in this country? How true is that? Is that a conspiracy theory?
It's already happened. It's a reality. There's no conspiracy in it. We were manufacturing it at a higher price. The rest of the world was going to manufacture it at a lower price. As a businessman, American companies thought it's better to send it out,
Purely for trade
irrespective
purposes.
of American labor losing jobs.
Okay.
They were not given any advantage or anything like that. And if you look at all the towns in the Great Lakes region, since these industries went out, their growth rate has been -9%, -10%, and those people left towns because the schools abandoned. If you go and look at the Buffalo train station, which was one of the most beautiful of its time, is rendered in wilderness because everybody just left. And we cannot blame the rest of the world for it if we are sending our jobs out and getting a cheaper car in return. That depends also on our purchasing power. And it doesn't stop there. Manufacturing went out in the steel industry, aluminum industry, and then we came down to clothes. We used to manufacture jeans, clothes, everything here, and they were sent out. And after that, we saw in the late 90s and the early start of the century, we even sent service sector jobs, that was technology, they were sent out too. So it's not something that we can do all this without a plan. And we, at the end, after 50 years, we didn't know this happened. We know it happened because we did it. And then we cannot blame China, oh, you took our jobs, or Mexico, you took our jobs. It's an irrelevant statement to make because we know who sent it out. So why blame a country on the outside and a population on the other side? You took this and you took this. That's like a political blame game, not a real solution to the problem. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Mandeep ji, I was just coming to this. So I don't know if you're, you're making this argument that now whatever the administration is doing, it's trying to bring back that manufacturing which they, themselves set out. But there's something else which you earlier mentioned, and I would like to talk about that. U.S. gains by having dollar as the currency for international trade.
True.
Right? Now we have seen a shift where U.S. is creating reserves in Bitcoin.
True.
So is that one of the reasons they are discouraging international trade because they are protecting themselves and creating these reserves? Is there a connection there?
It's a long shot. Let's be very open about it. But as per our recent election, this was one of his issues and one of his points that once he gets elected, he will bring in the crypto part of the sector.
Would that be at expense of the dollar?
It could be, because if the world starts to trade in Bitcoins, that will be a shift outside of the dollar because most of the trade of the world happens in dollars. And our president is very clear because on the other side, they were talking about forming BRICS, a parallel currency, and it basically shot down that if it comes, you guys are out of the trade practice, that will only be China. But how do you stop China? It's easy to talk about China, you're out, but if you look at China, some of the products like 100% are made in China. Let's say the shoes, Nikes and Adidas and all these fancy shoes, the 100% manufacturing is in China. So how do you close them out? It's not an overnight thing. You can speak overnight. We can do say, okay, you're shut. It'll take time for the manufacturing to move. And then again, the cost of labor. I remember 20 years back, before China was in the picture, a pair of Nikes would cost 120 to 130 average. And people used to plan how to buy a pair of Nike. And then when China started to make it, people would not plan, they will go buy Nike. Look at the stock price too. So it's every topic here, what we're talking about, has a very strong build-up to talk about, but we will just touch on the points. And same thing is with agriculture. You have manufacturing, you have service sector, you have agriculture. You can sell something where the trade cycle is set, because it takes at least 2-3 years to set up a trade cycle of one product. But if you say today, this is not what we are going to do, and if it stops, to restart that topic and have that cycle start again will be the next growth of that crop. Then you have to allocate the same number of containers. You have to get the shipping in line. You have to get to other country to cancel their contract which they are buying from Australia or XYZ country, and then you sell your product. This is not something that you go to watch a movie and you come back, the movie was good.
ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ 20 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨਾਈਕੀ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੂ $120 ਦਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਲਾਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੈ ਪਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਉਹ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਨਾਈਕੀ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੂ $50 ਦਾ ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਬਟ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਬਾਇੰਗ ਪਾਵਰ ਹੈ, ਅੱਜ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ $120 ਹੈਗਾ। And this is something that, people see it as a result of the liberal trade policies the world has enjoyed post Second World War, which was, handcrafted.
Yes.
GDP ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਧੇ, ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਵਧਿਆ ਹੈ, and the world is fearing ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ present Trump administration ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਉਸ status quo ਨੂੰ, ਇਹ ਉਸ ਸਾਰੀ situation ਨੂੰ topple ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
Very true.
Is that right?
Almost. It's purchasing power. Plus, your supply is inexpensive. Plus, there are no tariffs on it. There are very few tariffs. And it works very well for the consumer. Our job is to provide the consumer at the cheapest price possible with a good quality. And if it's working well, and it's a supply chain cycle, and it should do well.
So Mandeep ji, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਥੋੜਾ ਸਮਝਾਓ ਕਿ where is the problem? We know ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ 20 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਕੈਮਰੀ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ it was, he is doing very well. ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ ਵਿੱਚ BMW ਤੋਂ ਥੱਲੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ। So the world is generally doing well. What is the need for whatever the current administration is doing? Who do they feel is left behind?
That's the best question to answer. What are they looking for? Because if we bring it back, it's a very valid question. It's a very basic, like why change manufacturing of 50 years? Let's say we bring it back. Do we have the skill for people to do that? Because that's also is to be seen. And what are we going to gain out of it? Are people going to go back to manufacturing?
Are they going to go back into coal mines?
True.
ਪੰਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਬੜੇ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਸਵਾਲ ਹਨ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਰਵਸ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਐਂਡ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਨਾਟ ਜਸਟ ਵਨ ਸਾਈਡ ਆਫ ਦ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਸਪੈਕਟਰਮ। ਸਭ ਇਹ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਇਜ਼ ਇਟ ਵੈਲ ਥੌਟ, ਇਜ਼ ਇਟ ਵੈਲ ਪਲਾਨਡ, ਔਰ ਇਜ਼ ਇਟ ਜਸਟ ਇੰਪਲਸ? ਕਈ ਹੋਰ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਵੀ ਹਨ ਬਿਯੋਂਡ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵਿਚ ਮੇਕਸ ਅਸ ਨਰਵਸ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਦ ਵੇ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ। ਦ ਵੇ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੋਸਟ ਹਰਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ। ਮਨਦੀਪ ਜੀ, ਬ੍ਰੇਕ 'ਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਕਈ ਚੇਂਜਿਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਵਿਚ ਮੇਕਸ ਅਸ ਨਰਵਸ, ਬਟ what makes us even more nervous is things like statements like taking over Greenland.
Yes.
Panama. We don't know what's our policy in Ukraine. ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਇਸ 'ਤੇ ਲਾਈਟ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ what do we understand with what's happening?
Very true. These are diplomatic questions which are always done in closed doors. So with this president, we have realized there is no diplomacy behind closed doors. Right? Every subject, every topic has a certain environment to deal with.
Bandip, you have I'm so sorry, you have long experience with international diplomacy. The meeting that there was between President Trump, President Zelensky and J.D. Vance, was it supposed to be on camera, in the media, open? Is that the way international diplomacy is done?
No, this is the first time you must have ever seen such a beautiful
scenario. But on TV we are seeing it for the first time, right?
It's again, the steps were, they spoke about the deal before coming to Washington, D.C. Once they got here, they spoke about the deal, and there were some ifs and buts on the numbers which didn't match, which were being spoken about. And then they all walked into this meeting. And whatever it looked like, from our side, it looked like he would accept what we are proposing. And he didn't have the numbers to accept anything. So that was the confusion. So they really started asking him certain questions. And of course, the pressmen didn't have to ask him what his clothing, because that's how he dresses. And he's in war. Even if you look at in the past, I had to go back and look. Churchill came to the White House during the Second World War, and he was dressed not in a suit, but there was no objection to it. But there's a difference when somebody is only talking diplomacy and he's coming for his standing in war. He's in the front line. So I think so, from our perspective, a person who's putting his line for the war is more to be accommodated than to be pointed fingers on his dressing.
Absolutely. But Mandeep ji, coming back to the point, Panama, Greenland, is this rhetoric? What's going on here?
They should have kept it to themselves till some deal was signed up. And the point is clear, okay, we want to have more defense for our country. And we sometimes, it's a little question mark on both sides, because on one side we are trying to be friendly to the Russians, which we should have done long time back, because you try to make more friends than more enemies in the world. And the position we are in, our currency is at the top, we are at the top economy, we can make friends of anybody we like. It's in our best interest to less spend money on defense and spend more money on education and healthcare in our own country. So on one side, we are trying to be friendly to the Russians, make them friends, and then we want to defend up to Greenland, because in next warfare is definitely not happening over land. It's with missiles and planes and drones. So it's a conundrum of all things going on, not being able to see which is a straightforward strategy or a policy, because we always had a strategy. We had a blue water strategy, that we have our oceans, we are well protected, and that still is there. None of the oceans are dried up. And the drones can do certain things, the planes can do certain things, but why have enemies in today's world when everything is so razor thin? And again, these are words to be used behind closed doors rather than to the common man who really does not know where Panama is or where Greenland is.
Mandeep ji, as much as we'll appreciate कि दोस्ती करनी चाहिए है and दोस्ती होनी चाहिए है, लड़ाई नहीं होनी चाहिए है, but we can't overlook the fact that if there are countries who are being aggressive against some other countries, because US has always protected democracy around the world. That's one of the basic mandates. Is that something we are going away from? Is that looking inwards? There was a time that we did that. Is that our policy now?
It's a very valid question, but it's in the reverse. If we look at NATO expansion in the last 20 years, it's only the NATO that has gone into and towards Russia. They have only gone into Ukraine. That's about it.
Okay.
If you remember, ages back when we were students ourselves, we used to have from the Eastern Bloc a word called Warsaw Pact. Right? That time Poland was in the Eastern Bloc. Today Poland is in the Western Bloc. How did that happen? So that means we have influence those countries.
There might be a difference. The thing is perception, the threat perception. I don't know if offense is the best defense, if that's what the policy is, but it's a gray area.
Yeah.
There's huge division.
Very
and,
true.
Everyone is nervous. We're trying to understand where is this administration going as well. Yesterday we had one of our senators going to Ukraine, and somebody very close to the president calls him a traitor.
I heard that too.
Yeah, that's not where this country has been traditionally, right?
Yes, very true. It's become something which we had not seen ever, that diplomacy is being talked about, spoken about on the streets and on social media.
Gee.
That's the new order which has influenced these new politicians, I guess.
Mandeep ji, ਤੁਸੀਂ new order ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ, and we started from there to conclude. Do you see a new, there was a world order created after Second World War, which has at least served America pretty well.
Very well.
Do you see a change in that world order?
See, our respect in the world is very well maintained with the ethics and morals or institutions that were out in the world. And now we are pulling all these institutions out since Second World War. This is the first time we have seen.
Gee.
We are pulling out WHO, we are pulling out USAID,
Gee.
we are pulling out whatever. And these were organizations which were supplying to the poor and the needy countries of the world, which we have over excessiveness of. We are not giving them something which we don't have.
Gee.
Now, if we produce, let's say, hypothetical number, 1 ton of wheat, and we only consume 1 gram, you can export the rest, and people can feed. But if USAID is not there, the wheat that is grown by farmers here in our prairies are sitting on it, not being sold to USAID, then they can take it to Africa or Asia, whichever country is in need, because there are a lot of countries in need. That's the basics. What do these farmers do with these contracts of wheat?
Gee.
How would they get paid? So at the end of the day, our own farmers will have to be either subsidized, and if the government pays them and let the wheat sit here in the country, then they cannot grow the next crop, because when that crop is ready to be harvested next year, what are they going to do with that?
Mandeep ji, bade important swalan, bade critical swalan, and as we said again and again during this show, I don't know if the world is at an inflection point, but it is some new paths. I don't know if it's a rhetoric for some trade negotiations, as you said. I don't know if we are leading into a new world order. I don't know if we don't even know what is the end game here. ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਨਰਵਸ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕਲੋਜ਼ਲੀ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅੱਜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਲਾਈਟ ਪਾਈ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਵਾਰਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਜੋ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਮਝਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਵੀ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਫॉर दैट। ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿਊਅਰਸ ਨੇ ਕਲੋਜ਼ਲੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹੋਣਾ, ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਾਈਟ ਪਾਓਗੇ। ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ।
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਫॉर योर टाइम।
ਇਹ ਸੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ। ਦੇਖਣ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਦ ਵੇ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ।